Hey, good evening, everybody. John here at Havoc Maker Studio. So today I'm going to start the first of a multi-part series, at least 4-part series, talking about villains for Marvel Crisis Protocol and why they're important, why that we need to be seeing more villains in the game than we've been seeing heroes, or at least a sort of balance. Now, I've got a previous video on this, that why it's problematic. I'll actually have the link for that down in the description below, so make sure you give it a look-see and tell me what you guys think. Now, there's been a little bit of pushback from, I don't want to say the community necessarily, well, actually, yeah, from subscribers in the community, whether at local game stores, Facebook Messenger, emails that I've received, and of course, here on YouTube. And nothing bad, but the point that people have tried to make is that villains are not the brand. Heroes are the brand. And in a sense, you are right. Kids and adults, everybody that are fans of the movies, the comics, the cartoons, a lot of the focus is on the heroes. But let's take a look at this from a different perspective, because without these supervillains, without these terrifying, horrifying, really, really bad people, then the heroes are nothing but a bunch of costume bullies or first responders that would live in it would be a very boring series to watch, or games to play, or books to read. Now, imagine Spider-Man without any supervillains running around. He would just be beating up bank robbers and drug dealers, which would be great, but that would make for some very boring reading and watching. Imagine Superman flying around all over the world, rescuing people from natural disasters and spinning around the world to turn back time to save Lois Lane and all that kind of thing. That would get boring. The super villains is what not only helps define our heroes, but also what challenges them and helps them grow. And I don't mean in necessarily in the sense that, hey, go beat up the villains, you level up, now you're much better. I mean in the sense that from obviously learning about new ways to use your powers and abilities and gaining that experience for future conflicts, but also character development, mental health development, emotional and physical, everything that goes along with gaining these experiences. These superheroes need the supervillains, and in a way, we need the supervillains, because the supervillains kind of fulfill a healthy or unhealthy, depending on how you want to look at it from a psychological perspective, a healthy or unhealthy need for what the villains are able to accomplish. And I'll get into that in just a moment. But before we go on, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Make sure that you give a thumbs up, or you know what, if you got to freaking give a dislike, put it down in the comments why you dislike it. That way I can enhance the videos in the future. All right, so let's talk about why we love the bad guys. Yeah, the heroes are all great, witty banter, good looks. They always rescue the love interest, all that sort of stuff, all the tropes that make us like our heroes. But we are drawn to the villains, right? Think about when you're watching Netflix, you and your better half are like, oh, I want to watch this documentary on serial killers, or women that snap, or how to commit the perfect murder. Think about that. Think about all the history channels where you're following these despots and tyrants and dictators. You're watching it to see, you're looking for to watch these villains. Think about watching the First 48 or Cops, or watching videos of police chases or daylight robberies. This is fulfilling a need, something that's deep down. And maybe in a future video, we'll go into Carl Jung and some Freud and a few others. We'll maybe delve into that. And I don't want to get too heavy with the psychology. And before anybody says, well, what the hell do you know? A, I've got a bachelor's in psychology. 2, or B, I am a former criminal investigator for the United States Marine Corps. So I've got the training, the education, and the practical experience to understand a little bit more about why we like villains. Doesn't mean I'm like the expert, but right now, compared to a housewife just sitting on the couch watching the first 48 or something along that lines, I got a little bit more weight behind it. It doesn't make me 100% the expert, but I at least coming from a point of knowledge as kind of the subject matter expert at this point. Now, why do we like the villains? Well, one of the things, let me see if I can pull this up here. Probably can't. Nope, cannot pull it up. That's all right. Now, one of the things about the villains that we like is the sense of freedom that they have. Not after they get caught, but the freedom to do things without the moral conflict, without the ethical conflict, and to see other people getting away with stuff that we've fantasized about or joked about, dreamed about. And yeah, people do this, man. I would love to rob a bank. Yeah, dude, I would totally kill that dude. You know, those things that people say that you've probably said or thought about or dreamed about. That freedom to be able to do that is tantalizing to the public, to us, the fans of supervillains and superheroes. And then a couple other things like the power, the ability to execute those things that we want to be able to do, that freedom that supervillains have, having these awesome, amazing powers. Hell, that is awesome in itself, but that also is tied in with the heroes. Okay. Victim blaming. And now hold up. One of the things, I'm trying to remember the principle, I think it's called the just world phenomenon, or the theory. It's a psychological thing where when people become victims, we subconsciously or even consciously think there's probably a reason that bank got robbed, because they were probably the bad guys, and the bank owner or bank manager probably got shot because he did something wrong, maybe stole somebody's money or tricked him out of their deed, that sort of thing. Blaming the victim is it's an actual more common thing than most people think about. And then when we're talking about victims and supervillains, we look at an aspect of it's better to be the villain than a victim. Usually these villains are the victim of some sort of circumstance. And then that circumstance is what propels them forward. It gives them their drive, their ambition for all these crazy world schemes, or even their low-level schemes of just revenge, that sort of thing. It's better that from our perspective, and we sometimes will sympathize with the villain. Think about this. How many of you sympathized with Killmonger in Black Panther? He was right to some extent. He was the victim. That's just a very bare example. And these are all just very loose examples because this is not about psychology. Well, it is, but it isn't. But the villains are more important than the heroes, in the sense that they're the ones that are actually driving the story. They're the ones that are creating everything, basically creating the world that the hero is interacting with. And we need them in the game more than we need the heroes. And I know that's a bit of a shocker or a stretch, but there is some solid truth to this. Now, a lot of you are like, well, we've got plenty of villains. We need is more heroes. Or, hey, dude, you know what? People don't care about villains. Well, they care about heroes more because that's on brand. That's what everybody recognizes. Yeah, in a sense, you're right. But what we like more than the hero are those villains. There's a whole depth or a whole range of articles and research journals, some peer reviewed, some not, that I've gone through that really kind of emphasize on why the villain is more important than the hero. We're not going to get into that. Actually, what we're going to start right now is the first of this video, or these video series, that's going to focus on the top 5, or in one case, the top 10 villains that we need and should have on the tabletop for Marvel Crisis Protocol. And we'll talk about their powers. And mind you, this is mainly my opinion and based on what we're seeing in the comic books right now and in the MCU and the various Disney Plus cartoons. So it's a combination of everything. And there could be a hint of wish listing, maybe not in the case of any spider foes, but in regards to all the other villains, we might see a little wish listing there, and you may or may not agree. Now, another aspect of why I think these guys would be good on the tabletop is because of their costumes, their possible playability, and that combination of everything. So there's multiple factors going on here, and maybe in a future video we'll list these as like the top 10 factors or 7 factors for making a good Marvel Crisis Protocol character. But right now, let's get into our top 5 for the spider foes. As soon as I click, there we go. All right, so first up, we have Morbius. Now, Morbius, if you guys are not aware, just got a movie out a couple weeks ago or a week or two ago. It's got Jared Leto in it as the main title character, Morbius. It's not doing too well in the box office. I think Jared Leto just needs to stop with making superhero films, even though I think he's still best Joker. At any rate, I think he's definitely a candidate for the Spider Foes, the Sinister Six, and whatnot. Now, Morbius, he is a vampire, a living vampire. He's not undead. He is a living vampire. It is not through any sort of mystical connection, at least in the comics. It is through scientific means. He is a scientific versus supernatural vampire. Now, he does have a lot of the invulnerabilities of being a vampire, as well as the vulnerabilities. His main thing is that he's just superhuman physically. He's got some sort of psionic flight, and I don't know how that really works, but his ability to fly around is through psionics. We know that he's got a life sucking. It doesn't have to, at least in some previous comics and cartoons, it didn't have to be through biting and draining blood. He had actually a way to drain the life energy just by touch, and it also that helped heal him. That's where he's got his natural or supernatural or scientific natural, whatever you want to call it, regeneration abilities. And he's super strong, fast, durable. He's got great stamina. The whole works. He is my number 5. He's at the bottom of this list, but I think because of the Marvel movie and him moving forward, maybe he is a good choice. Now, next up, we're going to take a look at Sandman. Now, he's my number 4. Sandman is probably, he might have to get pushed up a little bit more. You'll see the reason why I selected the other ones based on likability. But Sandman, I think on the tabletop would be absolutely amazing. You put him on at least a size 3 or maybe a size 4, so a 50 or a 65 millimeter base. Come alone, or not even come alone, to have him boxed up with another character. We'll talk about that in another video. He would have plenty of long range attacks, a lot of durability, maybe high physical resistance, because the guy is living sand. He is able to basically form sand constructs. He can move by turning himself into, well, basically a big sand pile and moving around at considerable speeds. He can grow to larger sizes. He can manipulate he can just manipulate his entire body as if it was sand, living sand. He's got great invulnerabilities. He's resistant to a lot of things. I think he is definitely a candidate for not only the Sinister Six, but the Spider Foes if they decide to put Sinister Six in. He is an iconic Spider-Man villain. And since he just got his reemergence in the most recent Spider-Man No Way Home, I think we might see him pop up. All right. Now, moving on, we've got the Rhino. Now, the Rhino has had a very bad MCU and bad cartoon kind of appearances, but the Rhino is definitely a possibility. And I'm going to explain why in just a moment. Now, if you're not familiar with the Rhino, he is a dude that had experimented on himself with gamma radiation, dosing himself over the years until he's got incredible strength. His stamina is through the roof. Like, he can fight for a full 24 hours, overexerting himself before passing out. His strength at one point rivaled the Hulk. He's pushing well over 100 tons, so he's just as strong as Thor. Once he gets moving, he can keep up with trains, so probably close to 60, 70 miles an hour. He does have a weakness, though, when he starts running. Whatever direction he's going to go until he stops. And that's either if he's hit something or he actually physically stops. He can't turn on a dime. But the guy is super strong. He's got some superhuman agility and endurance, and of course the durability. He can take TNT to the face. He can handle up to 100,000, or not 100,000, but 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit in heat, and a variety of other very deadly environmental things happening to his body. Because of his Rhino armor, and also because of the gamma radiation he's been giving himself. So he's sitting at my number 3. There's definitely, I think there's a case to swap him out with Sandman, but right now he's my number 3. Now, moving on to number 2. Now, you're going to see 2 Electros here, and there's a issue behind this. So the male Electro, we've seen him in the TV shows, or the cartoons. We've seen him in the Andrew Garfield and the most recent Tom Holland, played by Jamie Foxx. And so he's one of the longest running Spider-Man villains, and really another one of those iconic characters. He's got all sorts of electrical powers, flight, be able to do energy blasts, plasma blasts, all sorts of great things that I think would translate very well onto the tabletop. Now, recently, I'm going to say within the past 5 years, the original Electro had lost his powers. He made a deal with a character named the Jackal and the Lizard. They tried to give him back his powers, and he's like, you know what? I don't want to do this. So they betrayed him and gave it to a person, Francine Pyre or Fry. I think Francine Fry, maybe. Somebody he had killed. And so she ended up getting his powers by accident, and so she was like, okay, well, I'm going to get my revenge, and I'm going to kill you, Electro. So Electro male is dead, and that's why we have a female Electro running around right now. It's not like all of a sudden we retconned or anything. There's an actual full storyline on why there is a female Electro, and she's right now part of the Kingpin's Thunderbolts. So, if they're wanting to move forward with some diversity, I think the female Electro or the Jamie Foxx Electro will make an appearance. I'm hoping the female Electro, she definitely seems a lot cooler and a lot more vicious than the previous Electro. All right, moving on. She is my number 2. My number 1 is the Vulture, and I'm pretty sure you guys can understand this. He has made his appearance in the first Spider-Man movie with Tom Holland. He has popped up in various movies since then, and end scene credits. A lot of people like this character. Now, whether they go with the MCU version of the Vulture, or they go with the old man Vulture from the regular comic book line, I don't know, maybe some sort of combination for the tabletop. Now, some people are like, well, he's just a dude that flies. Well, yes and no. It is basically a super suit. The guy is genius level tech. He's got all sorts of claws and talons associated with the suit. He has a prolonged, because of his prolonged wearing of the suit, the comic book character has actually gained an ability to levitate naturally. I don't know how that works, but you know what? Comic book magic. So he can fly really fast. He's got highly durable armor. And if we go with the MCU, he's got all sorts of claws and little drones and cutty wheels and whatever going on there. Super high tech killer Vulture guy suit. The suit also, at least in the comics, gives him superhuman strength. This old man can lift up to 700 pounds, which is not considerably a lot, but it's almost on par with, at one point, with Captain America, who they had rated at one point 800 pounds lifting. I don't know what he is right now, but I think because of his popularity, at least in the MCU, and a slight resurgence in the comics, I think he is the number one choice. Now, how do we package these? Well, I would say if we go with Morbius, like I said, he's my number 5. I don't put a lot of stock into him, but I think with the other characters, we could very easily go with, like, say, Sandman and, I don't know, let's say Sandman on like a 50 millimeter base. Let's see here, Sandman, and let's go, not with Rhino, Sandman and Electro. There we go. And then we can go with Vulture and Rhino. There we go. I'm bouncing around there, but you guys get the idea. They can easily do some 2-person boxes, one with the 35, one with the 50 or 65 millimeter base. We've seen it before with the Lizard and Craven. We saw the big box with Dr. Voodoo and the Hood. So these things are definitely possible. Now, are we going to see any of this? Man, guys, I have no idea, but this is my top 5 for the Spider Foes. They don't even have to be Spider Foes. This could be the start of a new affiliation, the Sinister Six or the Savage Six. And then we already got a bunch of the Sinister Six available. So now just bring them over. Now, did I miss some characters here? Yeah, man, we got Scorpion, which we know that Scorpion has popped up in the MCU, at least in the first Spider-Man movie with Tom Holland, in name only, in a prison scene. There's also like Hydro Man. Then we've got the Jackal and a variety of other characters. But I think these ones right here stand the best chance of being put forward for being on the tabletop. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. The next video, I'm not sure which ones we're going to do because I've got 5 total teams and they range anywhere from 5 or 10 characters. And in one or two cases, it's just really kind of a hodgepodge. They don't really fit in as a anti, say, Defenders or Avengers, but they have crossover with a lot of those characters and those team books. So let me know what you guys think. And if you guys are thinking I'm missing a character, put it down in the comments below and I will see where we can add them. And if I think they need to add them, give me a reason to include them. Anyways, you guys have yourself a wonderful day. Look forward to our supervillains rising maybe in 2022. Talk to you guys later.